Beautiful mountain. So going back to the business side of it all, the general routine was we'd get up 6:30 or so, have breakfast. We'd already have our gear packed. We'd use these big expedition packs, and then they'd be put either on the yaks or porters or however they're going to get moved up to wherever we're going for the next night. This is not an untypical place to stay, tea rooms. So, you know, lots of little individual cells really, but with a couple of beds in. And then a big common room where they'd have food. Food is all pretty basic, but good enough for what you need. Or you can use a porter, and these guys are moving a lot of building products up. To give you an idea of what he's got, this is 20 sheets of 5mm plywood. So it's that big. It's not quite an 8x4, but it's certainly, I can't lift it. And he just straps it with a band around his head, on, and off he goes. And you'll see these guys slowly working their way through the day. But it must do them a lot of good, because I didn't see too many bald ones. So it does manage your things for your head and your hair. Maybe I need to do some. And the area behind actually is one of the schools that's set up by Sir Edmund Hillary's Nepal Fund. So was quite a hero there, or still is. Suspension bridges again, and you can see a line of yaks just finding a little trail down through here, and they'll come across. When you see those coming the other way, you know who's got the right of way. Religious area, lots of Buddhists, mostly Buddhists, and of course you've got the temples and the monasteries. So it's always good to have good luck. So we have a puja, which is a blessing, so all of the climbers would do, plus Sherpas and any good reason. Of course you pay your few dollars for the monks to do it, and we had a very auspicious day. So instead of just one monk, we had about 30 of them in the room, and they were all chanting, and you know, they have tea, they have biscuits and all sorts of things to keep them going through the day. But yeah, lovely, good thing to do. And the young kids are in the monastery. The general thing is it's seen as you've got to spend at least a night in a monastery, and most of the kids will spend at least 3 months living there. They seem to be pretty happy. I don't know, I think they probably learn to read and write there. And as for this door, if you can't read Nepalese, you can always look at the photograph, and that will tell you what you're supposed to be doing. So once we get out of the normal tracks and trails where everyone can get to, and the trekkers go to, you run out of tea houses, and then it's just camping. We had quite a bit of gear, both for the later part of the expedition. Some of the gear was going directly to base camp, so part of our climbing gear went that way, all the heavy stuff, plus the high altitude and ultra high altitude gear, which I thought I'd stick some over on the table, and you can have a look at the sort of stuff. It's not what you find in Kathmandu, it's not what you find in any of the shops really in Australia. So that all went to base camp.
Is that taken up by quarters?
Yeah, and the yaks. They can get a yak to the base camp, so far better they carry it than me. But we would, you know, carry on. There'd be a camp cook as well, so it was pretty comfortable.
Where's base camp at this point, in relation to this photograph?
Oh, I don't know, because if you think of a line that goes Ukla base camp, and the valley in between, we'd sort of wandered up and here and round, and all sort of small little side valleys, tributaries. But you know, we were probably 2 weeks into the walk by then. Another walk to get to base camp. another week to get to base camp, but that was our own choosing of which direction we wanted to go in. Our idea was solely acclimatisation and just really just visiting places that people don't go to. And this is just, this is certainly it. Most of these peaks haven't got a name, certainly haven't been climbed. We go over these, wonderful passes, and these are the views that you would get. Goikia Lakes is a popular place that people trek to, and we ended up staying there for a couple of days. And so we had a rest day, which really meant we had nothing much to do. We didn't have to get anywhere. So what do you do on a rest day? Well, you go for a walk. And we all seemed to walk in different directions. I just came up this area to have a look at another 8,000 peak, Troyu on the other side, and got to a place, had a look, moseyed around. I'd walked 2 or 3 hours by then. Found all the cairns, and I thought, well, they must be good luck. So I built one myself, of course much better than these, and, and then wandered back. It was a lovely day, and I was back around about lunchtime, which was then in time for Adam to suggest we go and climb another peak, which we thought we could get up and down before it got dark, with the idea of going to visit and have a look at Everest, which is this peak here in the clouds. And so Adam decided he'd stay and have a look at sunset. I decided I was going down to have dinner, and so I was down just before it got dark, and he came down and then he twisted his ankle, so he's hobbling for a few days.
Is that Gokia?
Gokia.
It is?
Yeah. And this is Everest again. But it's fine little thing to go and clamber up. So another good view of Everest, probably is the most you get from anywhere really. This is, as I said, we're going round and round in circles at times. This is the back of Amadablam. It's a massive mountain anyhow, so you can spend a week or two just walking around it. And we found other things to climb, another peak, thought we'd just climb. Because it's, you get a bit, you just want to do things, and climbing up to a peak is a good way of acclimatising and having another look around. It's a fairly common one. This is the only girl on the party, Alina, one of the top women mountaineers from Macedonia, really strong climber, and yet more beautiful views. So then we get to base camp. So we've been going 3 weeks, and now we're at base camp. This is probably the first view you get as you're walking. On the left is all the tents, a little city really. You've got the main glacier, and you've got the ice fall. This is actually the West Ridge. I call it the West Ridge of Everest, but that's basically what it is. We'll get some better views of the layout of the land.
So are people in those tents, or is that just left behind stuff?
No, that's people. Yeah.
Does it have loo?
I'll get to that question. If you need one now, it's along that corridor.
Well, that's the answer to the question.
So this is base camp, and this is early in the season, so lots of snow still. Big yellow tent is the cook's tent. Sherpas have spent a couple of weeks building this, so they've got actually stone walls inside and tarps over the top. We've got a store tent. A lot of this stuff is just stores and oxygen bottles. We shared it with another expedition, so that you've got a decent numbers for the cook to cook for, and that worked out pretty well actually. Our wonderful cook, he uses the primer stoves, but he fires them up with with gas to start with propane. That gets them hot, and then he can actually run them and cook. But very good cook for us. And the store tent next door, he just goes in there and gets what he wants. I wandered in there one day and there's this just huge, I guess it's a leg of buffalo, much like a cow. It was just stuck there on the dirt, slowly freezing away, and just goes and chops off what he needs. But none of us were sick, so he must have been doing something right. And if you want any fuel, that's the way it comes. And I sent this photograph to a few people, and I named it Power Walker. I'm not going to give up my day job for that. You have a day job. The toilet. Okay. So this is the way it's set up. It's long gone are the days where you'd have mess everywhere. It's well organised. You put your own tent up, you build your little platform, and then you've got a big blue bucket, about that size. And when it's full, you pay someone, they'll take it away and give you another one. So you never shake hands with anyone carrying a blue bucket. And of course you can see the tents in the background. These are the sort of things. We had a tent each after, you want some time on your own. And of course we're all getting ready for another puja. So bless the Sherpas and bless us and bless the mountain. And this is Nuptse, which is a mountain. When you see Everest from many places, you see this mountain first, and a little peak tips over the top of Everest, so you really don't get a great view. But the Nuptse looks spectacular from here, but it's just like a ridge tent. It's long and flat and quite boring, but at the end, it's quite steep and impressive. And the ice fall is behind in this area here. We'll see more of that. Whilst we're sort of hanging around, there's opportunities